Hello everyone and welcome to yet another edition of Inside Africa. The mineral-rich soils of the Democratic Republic of Congo produce natural industrial diamonds than anywhere else in the world, but these diamonds come at a cost. More and more children are working from dawn to dusk in the dangerous mines. The United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF has tried to limit the damage to the country's youth. In 2007, it launched a joint initiative aimed at taking the children out of the mines, and nearly 6 years on, and thousands have been given another chance.
Digging their way out of poverty, more and more young children in the DRC are heading to the mines in search of work. They are being forced to work at such a young age to help support their families.
My son began working in the mines due to shortage of money at home. I earn very little as a farmer and could not make enough to support him.
Although diamonds are a valuable commodity on the global market, very little trickles down to the child workers. They earn an average of $1 to $2 per day. Mbuji-Mayi is the capital city in the province of Kasai Oriental, one of the country's major mining regions. According to UNICEF, nearly 4 out of 10 children engage in some form of labor in the area, many in the dangerous local mining industry. But in 2007, UNICEF, in partnership with Save the Children, introduced a program aimed at rescuing the children. Through this initiative, over 100 community volunteers were mobilized. They went around the mining sites, identifying children and offering them placement into social and educational programs. Between 2007 and 2012, UNICEF says over 2,800 children were taken out of the mines and put back to school. Adolescents over 15 years old receive vocational training and go on to participate in income-generating activities.
Many of them have moved on to become mechanics, and some have become tailors. So there are success stories from children coming out of the mines.
The DRC's Ministry of Labour has set the minimum age for employment at 15 years old, but the law has yet to be implemented.
Worried at the rate at which substandard and other traded products enter the country, the government of Nigeria is partnering with the government of Cameroon to combat cross-border counterfeit between these countries to ensure the safety of citizens.
The federal government's decision to introduce tough measures against the widespread peddling of adulterated or substandard products, considering the damage such products have inflicted on the health and well-being of Nigerians, is on the verge of yielding fruits. This fact was disclosed during a visit of the DG Standards and Quality Agency of Cameroon, Charles Boto, to Nigeria. He noted that the synergy will further harmonize and safeguard cross-border trade between Cameroon and Nigeria.
I want to put on this way of cooperation between NAFDAC so that it will help also our agency and all to do the same thing in our country based on the experience of NAFDAC.
Director General of NAFDAC, Paul Ohi, identified counterfeiting of products as a major problem, but affirmed that the Nigerian government is at the forefront of forming a strong economic bloc against counterfeit products.
Cameroon and Nigeria share borders. We have vast and porous borders. People move freely, and commerce, we want to encourage commerce between these two countries, but the commerce has to be in good regulated products that are wholesome and effective and very beneficial to our people.
Lives of millions of people are endangered as a result of cross-border crime through consumption of fake and substandard products.
In Nigeria, the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, has promised to provide direct communications where PRC or the necessary support it needs for the success of its education program designed to help improve the quality of education of the basic and secondary levels in Nigeria. This assurance was made when the Executive Director of Direct Communications PRC, Raymond Dokpesi Jr., paid a visit to the Commission's headquarters in Abuja.
Building a partnership to improve education at the basic and secondary level in Nigeria. Alejo Dokpesi is at the headquarters of the Universal Basic Education to seek support for the Dar Communications Education Service to primary, secondary and vocational schools. It's a collaborative effort between the federal government and Dar Communications, which seek to utilize satellite television broadcasts and ICT to provide quality teaching and training to teachers and pupils. The idea was born out of the Dar chairman's concern about the declining standards as manifested in the poor performance of students in public examinations.
If our future in this country is supposed to be one in which there is going to be hope, we must be in a position to provide the manpower ourselves. We must be in a position to develop our country. We cannot have baked children that are not able to compete favorably.
The Dar Communications Education Service consists of 25 channels dedicated to primary and secondary school instructional lessons based on the Nigerian curriculum. It's also expected to impact on the teachers as it includes varying capacity development programs aimed at ensuring that teachers are kept up to date with the latest techniques that will make them more effective in the classrooms.
There is also one channel that is going to be dedicated to the upliftment and retraining of teachers as they were. That is their pedagogic development. And we also have 3 other channels that are dedicated to Almajiri education. We have 22 other channels to take care of all the other classes. So on the whole, there are 25 channels that we are dedicating quite completely to this educational process.
From primary 1 all the way up to SS3, we are going to break the curriculum down by every subject, by every topic, by every lesson, to make sure that where they are writing their examinations, the full scope of the Nigerian curriculum would have been delivered to them, not just through the normal lectures, but by way of a very engaging style of teaching.
Applauding the effort, the acting executive secretary of UBEC, Charles Onocha, wants Dokpesi to include other well-meaning Nigerians in the project. Before he left, Alejo Dokpesi again assured of his organization's readiness to kickstart the program, as all the necessary facilities have been put in place to ensure distribution of content nationwide.
We move over to Ghana, where the 400 megawatt Bui hydroelectric project is about 89% complete. This will be inaugurated by April this year. For the first time, the power from Bui will be connected onto the national grid. President John Dramani Mahama, who was on a tour of the Bui Dam on Tuesday, said it will come as a relief to the ministry in the wake of the current power outages.
On the Bui hydroelectric project started in August 2007. 6 years on, the project is about 90% complete, and by the end of April this year, the first turbine to generate about 133 megawatts of power will be connected onto the national grid. The dam, when complete, will augment the nation's power generating, particularly in the northern sector of the country. The components of the project include a concrete gravity dam with 5 bay spillways and 3 penstocks in the middle of the dam. There is also a powerhouse where electricity will be generated, saddle dams, transmission lines and a permanent bridge downstream. All of these are at the completion stage. It is anticipated that the country needs about 5,000 megawatts of power by 2016, and the Bui hydroelectric project has been programmed to provide 400 megawatts to feed the nation's growing needs. President Mahama was certain that with all the efforts being made by government, the energy problems will be solved by the middle of the year.
I feel certain that by the middle of this year, we should have ameliorated the situation. And with the assurances we have from the West African Gas Pipeline too, that by April, they should have fully repaired the pipe and restored the flow of gas. Then we can have the units in Abuazi also fully operational. And I think that we have to resolve that we'll never go through this situation again.
The CEO of the Bui Power Authority, Mr. Jabesh Inisa Arthur, said all resettlement has also been completed.
We have successfully resettled all the communities that needed to be resettled, especially those who are living in the area where the lake is now formed. Later on in the year, the other 2 units will also be completed and start production in the fourth quarter of this year.
The Minister of Energy, Mr. Emmanuel Kofi-Boa, reiterated the need for the country to put in more energy supply as demands continue to increase. He was optimistic that the problem will soon be over.
We are still in Ghana, and now 130 kilometers of wildfire for fishermen at the fishing harbor in Tema is near completion. On completion, the wildfire will give the fisher folk a decent platform to handle their catch, as well as an area to mend their nets. The Deputy Minister for Transport, Madam Difa Ativo, visited the wildfire under construction to inspect progress of work.
In April 2010, late President John Evans Atta Mills visited the Tema Fishing Harbour and expressed concern about the dilapidated wooden wharf. He instructed the Metropolitan Assembly and the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority to reconstruct a more permanent wharf for the fisher folks. The directive was strictly adhered to, and currently work is 90% complete on the new concrete wharf. All gravity blocks required have been provided, and engineers are working on the underwater wall trench. The project manager, Julius Carl Hammond, gave the Transport Minister, Jifa Ativo, an overview of progress of work.
To finish producing all the gravity blocks, it's all ready. We have some on our site. Yes, this is about 85% of it. What is happening now is we are in a very delicate position or situation. So that is what we want to overcome, and then we just carry on. That's it.
The minister stressed the need to complete the facility urgently.
We have promised the people of Tema Newtown, and we have to deliver. So please, let's make sure we commission the project so that we have convenient places to mend their nets. Yeah, it's important. So if the contractor delays the project, it is not in the interest of we Ghanaians. So please, let's expedite action so that the people will have a place to do their business.
The Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Mr. Richard Anamu, said turbulence, debris and unstable sea tide is impeding the completion in the project.
The project is intended to be about 130 meters long of a concrete wall with pavement and all the access road from the beginning, the entrance to the fish harbour right up to this place with street lighting. The contractor has basically finished with most of the precast units, which you have seen here, and a lot more outside. They're now currently doing the underwater works where they have to lay the trench and then subsequently place these blocks before they reclaim.
The 5.7 million Ghana cedi project is funded by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, and it is expected to be completed in April this year.
Moving on, the red meat industry in South Africa has urged government to prosecute butchers. This after researchers found that the meat supply chain may have been compromised in some provinces. It says an independent auditing company inspects meat at abattoirs, and after it leaves the abattoir, the health department must ensure compliance.
Meat processing, a multi-billion rand industry. It produces everything from hamburgers to wors and biltong. Citizens are aghast that donkey and water buffalo may have been processed and eaten unwittingly. John Moti is a popular butcher in Johannesburg's northern suburbs. He says the practice of mixing meats is common. Many butchers have been defrauding their clients for financial gain.
Butchers are importing deboned meat from South America using different kinds of protein locally and soyas. And just with regards to your primals and chickens, they've been injecting them with water and brine to drop the cost and make it more appealing to the consumer.
I was shocked, especially after the huge row in England with the horse meat and now donkeys and water buffalo mixed with our meat.
Mzito's Kitchen is in downtown Johannesburg, providing flame-grilled food for hungry commuters.
The news that donkey meat has infiltrated the supply chain is a bit unnerving.
The feeling I had was the feeling of death, because it's better that you know what you're eating.
But eatery owner Mzito Mzizi has assured his clients there are no shenanigans here.
It's not like before, whereby somebody will just come and buy meat. They don't know what meat is that and all those things. People are very much sensitive these days.
The Department of Health and Agriculture are investigating. For now, consumers are warned to be more cautious when buying meat. Experts say if the meat is too cheap, you should start worrying.
Taking you now to Uganda, the Kampala Capital City Authority, KCCA, has closed 24 private schools in 2 divisions in Kampala. The schools do not meet the minimum standards such as facilities, qualified staff and relevant school curriculum to operate. The authority plans to continue with the operation.
The conditions at some of the schools are appalling and the children are at risk. The sanitation is poor and garbage litters the compound and the children's play area. The meals given to the pupils and students is also an issue of concern. The toilets are crumbling and filthy, while the classrooms have poor ventilation. Some of the classrooms have no lighting at all, and worse still, in one school we visited, the primary 7 classroom doubled as a school guard's restroom. While some school administrators and teachers are believed not to have the required qualifications, other schools do not have the licenses to operate, and with no option left, these schools have been closed.
We are requesting that the school closes beginning from tomorrow.
It's better they suffer a minor problem than having their children at risk.
Kampala Capital City Authority says the head teachers will be pressurized to ensure that affected parents are given back this term's tuition fees. The school heads are, however, not pleased with the sudden daunting action that has left them with no definitive explanation to their service users. Some are adamant they want to keep the schools open despite the directive.
You have given me a writing and say in such and such a period we are coming to close the school because of A, B, C, D, but this business of jumping in, we've come to close, it is illegal.
Are you going to continue operating?
Yes, please, I will continue.
How do I tell the parents at this time the school is closed?
But the authorities say the guidelines are known by any qualified teacher.
And we advise the parents to find other schools for them.
In the meantime, the head teachers have been tasked to check their standards and ensure they follow the guidelines. The schools will only be reopened when they have been given operating licenses, and this means there will be another check-up by these officials.
In Ethiopia, the Ministry of Agriculture says it has been carrying out various activities that will enable it ensure food security. To this end, it has given a top priority towards increasing agricultural productivity and production.
Ensuring food security, improving agricultural productivity to achieve 6% annual growth rate, and develop dynamic regional and sub-regional agricultural markets are among the NEPAD vision for Africa by 2015. The Agricultural Research for Development SARDSC project, which is working on strategic food crops to enhance food security and improve livelihoods of citizens in sub-Saharan Africa, goes in line with the NEPAD's vision. Even if Africa is endowed with conducive environment for wheat production, many African countries look outside the continent for wheat import and support. And that's why, in addition to rice, maize and cassava, the Agricultural Research for Development has made its main focus on developing wheat components in 12 African countries. As one of the targets of the project, Ethiopia is working for the attainment of food security, making the agriculture sector the engine of the economy. Making remarks on the Inception workshop of wheat commodity, State Minister of Agriculture Wandiradman Defros said the country is striving to enhance the production and productivity of the sector.
The economic development policy of the government of Ethiopia has been agriculture in the highest priority under the aegis of agricultural development-led industrialization, in short ADLI. In this regard, the government has put marked emphasis towards adopting, improving, generating and disseminating demand, fulfilling agricultural technologies that will increase productivity and competitiveness in the agricultural sector.
Director General of Ethiopian Institute for Agricultural Research, Dr. Solomon Asafa, on his part, said the achievement of Ethiopia on wheat production is the implication for the success in the project.
Over the past years, the Ethiopian Agriculture Research, in partnership with CIMIT and ICARDA, have released several wheat varieties, crop management technologies, and socio-economic innovations that significantly contributed to the productivity growth of wheat in Ethiopia. Accordingly, in the past 8 years alone, the national average wheat productivity increased from 1.2 ton per hectare in 2003 to 2 ton per hectare in 2012.
Director General for International Center for Agricultural Research in the dry seasons, Dr. Mohamed Sol, also said Ethiopia can be a model for the project.
Ethiopia is going to play a very major role in this project, and already the Ethiopian government, with great appreciation, they have put agriculture as a top priority. And this is why we can see really in the last 7 or 8 years, Ethiopia came a very, very long way in enhancing food security.
$63 million has been allocated for the project by African Development Bank.
As Kenya prepares for presidential elections next week, some communities displaced by the intertribal fighting that followed the 2007 vote are still looking for a home. In the town of Eldoret, some displaced people say they will vote for the two candidates who are accused of fomenting the violence that uprooted them from their home in the first place.
The ethnic Kikuyu residents at the Naka displaced people's camp in the Rift Valley were driven from their homes by Kalenjin mobs following the last presidential election in Kenya. Years later, they're still waiting to be resettled by the Kenyan government. As the country prepares for elections on March 4th, camp resident Scholastica Wanjiru says she sees hope in the alliance of Kikuyu presidential candidate Uhuru Kenyatta and his Kalenjin running mate William Ruto.
It will help us very much because, as you can see, now they are telling us we are brothers and sisters. We have seen the fruits of their union and we are all together now.
While the presidential ticket is seen as a uniting force by some, Kenyatta and Ruto are both charged by the International Criminal Court with crimes committed during the violence that followed the 2007 election, including the displacement of people. 67-year-old Duwadi Gathau Kamani says the two tribes have always fought each other over land, but he too is hopeful that the new alliance will work.
If they have really united and agreed, and if it's genuine, I will say it is justice, and I'll forget the past.
But Nick Omido, deputy head of the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Eldoret, is skeptical about the real motivation of the camp's residents for supporting Kenyatta and Ruto.
I think those IDPs are just not being genuine because one is that it's the same group that has made them to be in that position. The two, that the cost of them being in that position. I think that the perception is that the two will win and then they'll reward them. That's what they're looking at.
Land rights have been a major issue in this year's presidential race. Residents of Naka camp are hoping that their vote will help bring them new land to farm and a place to call.
And while some voters are seeking reconciliation for the country, the Institute of Economic Affairs have accused political parties of launching manifestos that do not address critical components of Kenya's economic links. The think tank says the manifestos, colorful as they are short of the assessment and may not be visible.
As has become the norm with elections, launch of colorful manifestos that state a party or coalition's ambitions have become the custom. Grand plans for the economy are put across to Kenyans, some that capture the aspiration of most. But in doing so, presidential candidates leave out one vital issue: how they plan to actualize and finance their plans. According to the Institute of Economic Affairs, in developing their grandiose manifestos, political parties fail to take into account the current economic challenges. Most of them opted to adopt the kind of splash the cash syndrome to get things started, failing to take into account the high spending already in place.
2.5% of the budget being spent in a youth fund. Okay, for this year's budget it's 24 billion. Okay, if that was to go in and it become a part, it was 24 billion. Two problems immediately arise. One, the 24 billion, more than 15 ministries, and we have 42 of them. So more than about 1/3 of ministries have a budget of less than 24 billion.
In a report outlining the productive sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, manufacturing, employment and social economics, IEA sought to address some of the gaps presidential candidates have repeatedly failed to shed more light. For starters, in agriculture, parties highlight loans to farmers, subsidies for farm inputs, putting more land under irrigation, and mechanizing farming are some of the things their governments would like to implement. However, sources of funding, acreage they would like to put under irrigation, or even which crops would be given priority in terms of food security are fundamental issues missing in the manifestos. The same mentality of introducing highly capitalized plans with no clear financing plans seeps through into manufacturing and social economic aspects such as education and healthcare.
Even if we could afford this, some of these, they're outlandish because they're really bad ideas. That's a really bad idea.
The greatest fear by the economic think tank is that a lot of economic distortions and profiteering avenues are created for people to exploit if parties are left to implement the manifestos as they are.
It is on that note that we come to the end of today's edition of Inside Africa. Thanks for always taking our time to be with us, and keep watching AFRIQUE Media for more news.